Welcome to the 4MileCircus, the official podcast of 4MileCircus, which is a media production and social media services company based in Brooklyn. Check us out at 4MileCircus.com. That's the number 4, followed by the word Mile Circus. My name is Sean Mannion. I'm a writer-director in Brooklyn.
And I'm Nicole. I'm the other half of 4MileCircus and a writer, director, producer based in Brooklyn. On this podcast, we will talk to independent artists and media makers about their relationships with social media. If you like what you hear, please subscribe on iTunes or your platform of choice and give us a 5-star review. It really helps spread the word about the show.
We're going to be live streaming this and future interviews on Facebook as we conduct them. So like 4MileCircus on Facebook to be notified of future live streams so you can see all our mistakes and comment with questions for the guest. Some questions may even make it into the show. On this episode, part 1 of a 2-part interview, we'll be discussing crowdfunding with Michael DiBiasio and Rebecca DeOrnelas of the feature film The Videoblogs. Welcome to the 4MileCircus podcast. Yay! Good response. That's the best response. 4MileCircus is a podcast from 4MileCircus, where we talk to independent artists about social media, crowdfunding, and how they get people to see what they do. We're talking today with Michael DiBiasio and Rebecca DeOrnelas of the Videoblogs, independent feature film that was recently released on iTunes, Amazon, Verizon, and Frontier Cable. And before we get started talking to them, Nicole, do you have a social media tip for the audience?
Yes, I do, Sean. I have a social media tip for the audience today. Today's social media tip is about building followers on your social media platforms of choice, meaning people who follow your account. I guess that was obvious.
Not like the people that I have dress all in white and follow me around.
That's those are also important followers, but that's a tip for a future episode.
How do
Please
I get
don't
more
spoil
of those?
it.
Okay.
We don't.
Okay.
You have to pay for that information.
Got it.
We can book a consultation.
Got it.
And Sean can tell you his personal tips.
My very personal tips.
Yeah. So the other kind of followers, the people who might follow you on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, wherever, Snapchat, wherever it may be that you're looking to have people follow your account, engage with your content and all of that. You know, people start a Twitter account and they're like, okay, I have one follower. It's my dog's account that I also set up. So it's my sock puppet account I'm pretending is run by my dog.
Sounds like my sister's account.
Sounds like an account I might be into. In fact, we can get that contact info later. But so when people are like, how do I get people other than my fake dog's account to follow me? And the easiest way to do it is just very consistently, regularly follow accounts that might be interested in your account, and a certain number of them will follow you back. I generally suggest follow 25 accounts a day. I say that number because it will keep you under the threshold on most social media platforms that'll get you flagged for aggressive following or whatever that platform calls people kind of trying to do business. It's a real term. Twitter says aggressive following and unfollowing is a thing they watch for and can get you temporarily suspended and things like that you probably don't want if you're trying to build your social media presence and build your following. You don't want to get knocked out of the game for a few days for aggressive following. So generally across all platforms, just don't follow more than 25 a day. You should be good. Follow targeted accounts. Don't just follow like random stuff. Find another thriving, robust account that is followed by the kind of people who you would think would be interested in your project. Like say you made an account for your cookbook. You probably want to follow the followers of other foodie accounts. If it's a cookbook about chocolate and there's a, chocolate lovers here with, Twitter account that gets like hundreds of new followers a day, that would be a good account to follow. Just like go to who follows it, follow the 25 most recent followers, call it a day. Do that every day. A certain number of people will follow you back. You will grow your numbers. And then periodically you're going to want to go through with a third-party app, either Crowdfire or something else, to unfollow people who either aren't following you back or followed you back 2 years ago but haven't really used Twitter since then, so they're not going to miss it if you unfollow them because they're not using it anyway. And because you don't want to be following way more accounts than are following you, because generally speaking, that makes you look like less of a thought leader or some other horrible terminology I don't like to use, but it doesn't look as good.
Right.
Looks better if you're more in demand than you're demanding of others. So go through and unfollow. And I'll leave it at that for now. If you want to learn more about this, you can contact me and Sean, and we can maybe get together with you to help you, build a social media strategy that works for you, having to do with follow counts. But that's my social media tip of the episode. Was it great?
That was thoroughly adequate. That was easily the best tip that I have heard.
I started eating my candy because I was entertained.
It's like a movie.
It's like a movie.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's entertainment. That is junior mint-worthy entertainment.
For the people out
Tips
there,
are
it was like the
definitely
all-powerful Oz was telling us.
Yeah.
Because you can't be seen.
No, I can't be
Just
seen.
her voice. Who's behind the curtain?
You thought that we just had this awkwardly framed, but in fact, I'm invisible.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, shall we talk to them about their thing?
I guess.
So, let's just for the audience at home, can you guys describe what the Videoblogs is and who are you guys?
You go first.
Me go first.
Always.
The Videoblogs is it's a small feature film that we have been working on for two and a half years. What? You're going to make 3?
Yeah.
2.5, 3, 4, 5 years? No.
12.
And it's about a young woman played by Rebecca, our lead actor, in addition to her producer role, who is struggling with anxiety and depression, and her therapist is trying to get her to keep a daily journal to keep in better touch with her feelings, and she both knows that is a good idea and is trying to fight against it because she's struggling to do what's good for her, or what she knows what's good for her. So as a sort of hack, she starts to record these private video journals, and then once her one of her kind of depressive episodes kind of breaks, and she goes out with her extroverted best friend Cass and gets a little drunk, she leaves her laptop with all these private videos behind in a bar. It's discovered by a local college student around like 18, 19 years old. And so begins a story of friendship between three women who all kind of start the film each feeling isolated or anxious or depressed or struggling in their own way. And then over the course of the film, they come together to help each other out in some interesting and surprising ways. And I'm the writer and director.
I'm the lead actor and creative producer.
So you guys crowdfunded the Videoblogs on Seed and Spark. What was sort of your biggest revelation during that process, during the crowdfunding process? Like what worked that surprised you or didn't work that surprised you?
It was the most money that we've ever raised before. So the fact that it worked was surprising.
We were never sure that was going to work.
We were like, well, we had raised $7,000 before.
Okay.
So we knew we could do that much.
No, we tried to, and we ended up raising like 5.5 or something. 5,500 or something.
Is that how much?
I think so, yeah.
Multiverse?
Or more. No, it might have been more. It might have been 6.
No, I feel like we raised the 7.
I don't think it was.
We were close.
The most we had ever raised
Almost
before
7.
was 7 or 7-ish.
Yeah. Yeah. And for Videoblogs, we raised 20. Still not a lot.
Ended up being
20,000.
like 22.
Right, but what we shot for was 20.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was not easy. Yeah. I mean, crowdfunding is not an easy thing to begin with. I mean, you have to constantly be creating new content and constantly reaching out to people and asking which is not a easy thing to do as like a human, I think. Give me money. Though it's necessary, and I think that a lot of people, once they realize that like you're doing it, because especially you're crowdfunding on social media so much, and you don't know how many people are seeing, so you have to constantly, when people become aware, they're like, oh yeah, cool, I'll give money to this,
right?
You know, but it's just about constantly like reaching out and having like different touch points.
And one thing that worked, I think that at the time that we started, I think it was still a relatively fresh metric in the kind of crowdfunding circles or in the books of knowledge of the art of crowdfunding. But we also really focused on the idea of trying to get 20% of our goal in the first week from our earliest supporters and our kind of like our strongest kind of supporters of our fan base over the past several like short films. And one thing that we did that I think was very effective is the short film we mentioned recently, just now, Multiverse. That we didn't really put that on the festival circuit and didn't play it very much, even after it was done. Choosing instead to premiere it in front of our friends and fans here in New York, in a free event in a nice like venue that was thankfully we had a sponsor for the night, and
an open bar.
And we we invited everyone under the auspices of finally showing the Multiverse and giving them a night out of fun. We had a friend who's a comedian do a set and host the night. We showed a short sketch that some friends of ours had done, and then we showed Multiverse, and then we announced the crowdfunding campaign for the Videoblogs, which had just gone live that day. And we brought in several $100s that night that it went immediately into the campaign before it was public to anybody else, which was very helpful.
So you kind of you crowdfunded for Multiverse and raised at least part of the budget through crowdfunding. And then once that was done, you kind of immediately fed that back into this larger project that's thematically connected, right? Like it's not like,
it's kind of the next step.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the evolution for people at home who haven't seen Multiverse is a short about a woman who had agoraphobia, would it be?
Pretty much,
yeah. Isolation.
Yeah.
Isolated.
Like you leave it a little ambiguous about like what her diagnosis is or whatever, but you get the sense, you get that feeling of the state she's in, and it's a little short that's kind of a meditation of sorts on that, I guess. So, so kind of Videoblogs is a logical expansion of those themes, and it makes sense that somebody who was excited about Multiverse would be excited about
exactly. Yeah, which is something we also continue to push for throughout the campaign. I mean, we had a couple of different quadrants or like audiences that we wanted to hit, and we segmented those out and ran separate initiatives while we were crowdfunding to hit particular audiences within our networks. And just at the one that was the most general would be just fans of our work or fans of Multiverse, to the point where like we even engineered like a day online called like hashtag Multiverse Day, where we encouraged people to watch and share Multiverse, and then if they enjoyed it, to help us make our feature. So it was a little bit of like a lead magnet in that way.
So you just put Multiverse out there for free streaming online?
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't mention that. So immediately after we screened it in person in New York, we put it online, and pushed it, and anyone who liked it, we quietly let them know that, not so quietly let them know that they could help us make our next project.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. So anybody watching at home now, I put the link to Multiverse in the comments just now, and we'll put it in the show notes. So that brought up and sort of you touch on it a little bit with what you did with Multiverse, but I think it's I think it's interesting to hear how did you guys build your network for crowdfunding? I guess you started with Multiverse, and then you built on that for video blogs. But like what kind of things did you guys do?
Well, actually, it goes further back.
It goes further back. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've kind of been crowdfunding since before there was crowdfunding, in a way, and even further back behind that.
It.
What?
No.
Yeah, we invented it. I wish. So my first audience came after I made my first short film in college, which wasn't a student film. It was just made independently while I was in college. And I screened that in New York and in Providence, where I grew up and where the film was shot, largely. And that was kind of my first audience, which is like a lot of people, was mostly friends and family. And then we've kind of just branched out and grown from there. Our first project together was a featurette. Again, friends and family were our audience, and we had
a decent sized crew too.
Yeah.
So we grew audience that way.
And that even was it wasn't necessarily like crowdfunded in the typical sense, but it was friends and family who helped us pay for that movie, and us. And then Multiverse was several years later, when Kickstarter and Indiegogo were around, and we were pretty much returning to the same places that just thankfully kept growing with each project. And I had by that time had a small growing audience on my blog, and
we'd just been working for like 5 years, or at least me working as an actor in New York, and growing an audience that way, and then just combining them.
So some of it's sort of growing an audience outside of like the specific works, but also in just like your other things, like your blog, you're saying, which is mostly like writing, and your acting, which is
it's really like the long tail of it, or the long slog of it, which is keep working
and keep putting your work
out there.
Right.
And keep on keeping on.
Yeah.
Hope that you can grow in quality, such that quantity will follow.
And keep working in collaboration with people who have their own audiences, not just to kind of latch on to their audiences, but to grow your own like people that you're going to continue to work with.
Right. So it's important to sort of be part of not just the community, like the filmmaking community, but like multiple communities.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I have to say that it can get difficult, because we're all in this in the same situation. We share the common plight, so no one understands the independent filmmaker better than an independent filmmaker. Right. But I think that our success depends not only on that audience, but also like we can't only just be kind of keeping each other afloat. I think that, I would argue on the content side as well, like we need to be telling stories that people, even if they're niche audiences, or even if they're very particular, like specifically defined audiences, we need to be thinking of how to create content or craft stories that appeal to people not only like us in what we do, but in like where we've come from or where we want to go, or like the parts of our lives that overlap with daily lives of everybody.
That's a good point, I think, because the filmmaking community can be insular and inward looking, and sometimes tell stories that are from that position as well. But how can you expect to? It takes a community to make a film, but in terms of making that sustainable, you can't really expect your film to appeal to an ever-growing audience if they aren't stories that an ever-growing audience can connect with, because they're just stories that are basically about being a struggling filmmaker, which probably all of us are to some degree guilty of.
Oh, yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah, and
maybe.
I think one of the reasons the last few campaigns we've done, maybe excluding the confession, which was more just directly to our current audience, because it was a small little short with a $2,000 budget. But with Multiverse and with the video blogs, finding out why we're telling this story and who our audience looks like based on that helps us identify like who our audience is and what they look like, and from there figure out where they are and how to get in touch with them. Because one thing we haven't mentioned as well, but even in distribution, we toured the country for a few weeks to screen the video blogs in several cities, and in each one of those cities, like it wouldn't have happened without the help of the local mental health community. And even now, with our digital distribution, we're seeing the most support outside of our friends and family and the few fans that we have. We're seeing the most support from the mental health community, even more so than the independent film community.
I think also because Multiverse and the video blogs are more, for lack of a better word, moody films. They're representative of a way that like these, this small group of people are feeling, and it's not just this small group of people. It's using that as like a vehicle to show how lots of people feel. So I think that those two films were much more relatable, and it was just a matter of getting it in front of audiences for people to see like, oh, I think and feel this way too. And that kind of broke us a little bit out of the bubble of just independent film.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think with any project, it's important to seek out who the hell is going to be interested, whether it's what you're talking about with mental health, people who are interested in mental health issues, or if it's like a horror movie, or looking at those fans, or if it's there's main things that are coming to mind right now, but
I know you have a bunch of questions planned, and I should remember if this is one of them or not, but I don't right now. I would love to hear some about how you did that, how you reached out to the audience beyond who were already part of your, friends, family, fans, like people who'd been supporting your work, how you reached out more broadly to people either themselves struggling with or sensitive to mental health issues like anxiety and depression, which I mean, like, a lot of people, myself included, struggle with those things. So there's a very wide audience, I think, for honest portrayals of that. And I'm wondering how and if you built that audience, and if what role social media played in that, how you harness social media to get either in touch with the right people or literally get the film in front of the right people. I know Sean probably can maybe speak a little to that as well, having some experience. No, or not. Never mind.
I don't know anything about it.
Okay, Sean doesn't know anything. Sean doesn't
Don't
know
tell them
anything
that, though. I haven't done anything.
Well, to go back to where you started with your social media tip, it's like a couple of years back when we were making Multiverse, it just obviously came up as part of the conversation that it was about social anxiety and mental health. So I was active on Twitter by then. So the more I talked about that and the more hashtags I used, the more people followed me, the more I learned of, what organizations and people are out there working for the cause, and they're of course interested. It's a community that needs not only a lot of support, but a lot better representation on screen, and in terms of both volume and reality, versus like not everybody who's has mental health issues is like has a split personality and murders people. Right. Unlike what you see on TV, which is like 75% of the cases. So that was part of it, and that just kind of continued over time. And then especially when we were crowdfunding the video blogs and the message was getting out there, again, like if you're trying to tell a story authentically for a particular audience, like people get excited that there's someone championing their cause. So it just kind of creates this snowball effect of, oh, so-and-so's doing like people, connecting. And
yeah, a lot of people were getting referred to us, like especially for the tour. It was like, oh, I know this person who is a mental health activist in this city. Maybe contact her and see who she could bring to this screening and if they would be willing to be like on the panel. And it just kind of ended up, some of it just coming to us and some of it just us reaching out to mental health organizations and also participating in writing for their blogs. So I wrote for The Mighty, and then that got picked up by NAMI, and then those two organizations were involved with us in the...
Yeah, I want to highlight that because like the other part of I was thinking the same thing and I didn't say it, but we in essence became activists for the cause in the course of making these few films. So that kind of just introduces you to the community of like-minded people. And I think the mental health community 99% of the time has been very excited to hear about the video blogs in particular, because I think
it's an accessible
they're
medium.
Hearing about it. It's an accessible medium, but then they're looking at it and they're saying, oh, this actually does look like an accurate depiction or like a healthy representation of the struggle. So and also a hopeful one, which we really focused on with this film more than any other that we've made before.
Which some people liked and some people didn't like.
Yeah, and and then just to kind of put a just to make an additional point is there we've also done quite a bit of outreach, just cold outreach or warm outreach if there was an introduction from someone, and just emails or calls that just said, this is what we're doing, and because of those things we're just talking about, that we're approaching this honestly, the community is underrepresented. We've received a lot of support that way, and a lot of these people and a lot of these organizations are like, they're nonprofits or they're people that are holding like other jobs while they're doing volunteer work. It's not, unfortunately, in this country, there, like so many other social causes at this point in our history, like there's just a bunch of overworked people that are under-resourced, like working in their spare time to keep these initiatives afloat. And some places really wanted to help and couldn't because they were just too busy, and we were too busy to follow up like additional times, and then others like were able to squeeze it out. And that's something that we've learned also, that has to be understood when you're going out, whether it's crowdfunding or working on distribution. It's things may look a certain way on paper and they might make perfect sense to you, but as you go out and try to implement whatever strategies are there, which does need to be there, you also have to not only be open to adjusting and pivoting and trying new things, or realizing that certain things aren't going to work. This is something I think we're still learning. You have to give yourself plenty of time to do that maneuvering. And with crowdfunding, that can be especially tough. It's also a very good learning experience because you're on a clock. So you have 30 days usually. And sometimes, and Seed and Spark is really good at pushing this point, sometimes you have to say, this thing isn't working. Let's step back. What else can we try? And then when something else starts working, you can double down on that, or you can find out why it's working and do something similar. So it's like a very small example. Mass emails don't work very well. No. Like sometimes they'll work a little. They're a good way to keep people updated, but if you really need people to contribute, what we found, I think, the single most effective way, other than, email still being okay, was, messaging someone on Facebook while they're online. And
you just hang out like all day, and essentially like,
and you can do that in a way
stalk.
like where you're saying, hey, this is what's going on, we could use your help. If you can help, that would be great. If you can't, that's fine. Can you help us share? And most people, even like
will
if they're your
just
friend
share.
or your acquaintance, like they'll at least share. And the more they do that, the more momentum you can get on a given day, and the more touches you can get overall, so that as it continues, in your network and in the overlapping like circles that you have that are virtualized in Facebook, people are just seeing the campaign over and over again, and they feel compelled to look more closely and or to contribute.
Yeah, and I think making people feel involved in and invested in the campaign, even if they aren't putting their money into it, is just as important. I mean, a lot of those people will then, if it's the last minute and you haven't quite made your goal, some of those people might be moved to like, okay, well, I can give $10 towards it because they want, because they're in it then.
Yeah, exactly.
They're part of the they're part of the team.
And that brings up another point I found, that people wanted to know what was going on, not just like the good, not just like, hey, look how close we're going to our goal, or even just saying like, hey, we still need, $4,000, like, please help us, like, if this doesn't happen, then this doesn't happen, like, that's fine. But like, they kind of want to know like the nitty gritty of it, like being really honest with your audience, and even in those like messages, like talking to people and saying like, hey, this is really hard and I could really use some help, like not to make people feel guilty, but to be like completely like honest and show people how much you care about this thing. Because I think, as independent filmmakers, it's not every day that we're but it's, we're asking people for money more often than like your average person. Every couple of years we're like, hey, making another movie needs some money, hey, making another movie. So like the more people understand like where you're coming from and why it's important to you, the more they'll give a shit.
Yeah, and again, I would follow that with, I think it carries into distribution as well.
Yes.
Like going to like again, you're not asking people for money necessarily. You would think it is easier when the thing is done and people can just like pay to watch it. But I don't know. I found that when we're crowdfunding, people within our audience were so excited in paying these variable amounts, really just to see the film made. Right. Someone who can afford it is going to pay $100, mostly to see the film made and to be involved, for the same that the person who's spending $5. And like, as filmmakers, I hope most of us would agree that like we're just as grateful for the $5 as for the $100.
Yeah.
But once you get all the way out to distribution where we are now, where it's literally $5, like $4.99 to like rent on iTunes, our core audience is already like paid for the film and they got their copy early, which is something we always try to do. But after that, it's like, oh, well, I can do it anytime or whatever. And then again, we have to say, well, no, actually, like we're still a really small film. Like even though we're on iTunes, even though we're on these other platforms, even though we're really excited, even though we're in the newspaper, like we're still really depending on everybody in our audience and beyond to like spread the word about the film, because the numbers just don't add up. I mean, the films are so expensive to make, even when you're working at tiny budgets, and it's just, distribution is just so oversaturated that it's really a numbers game, and the grassroots work that we've been doing has to be done. And again, to speak to Rebecca's point, like we've tried to be honest about that and just be like, we need your help to make some noise, because we don't have an enormous marketing budget. We don't have yet. We don't have any stars in our film. Eventually, some of them will be stars, probably. But so it's a really good point about the honesty and the transparency. Even another thing that I thought of is that we like Rebecca was talking about when she did guest posts for these mental health organizations on their blogs. Even when we were crowdfunding, we did guest posts on a few different sites. And we that's the only way you're going to really get press for a crowdfunding campaign, unless it's a very large one, or there's a name actor, or it's like for a gadget versus a film. There are always exceptions, but there was a good way to kind of expand our audience, and it's also using what you have. Like, we have experience, we have knowledge, we have a point of view. We can lend that to another site, or particular blogs in the niches of our audience, and in exchange for that, they obviously share your words and spread the news about the campaign, whatever it is.
Yeah. Absolutely. So before we move on, I want to have a little bit more in-depth conversation about distribution in a couple minutes. But I know you also use Patreon for your podcast, because you're not just a filmmaker, you're also a podcaster, Coffee with Creatives. How do you compare how you approach Patreon? How would you compare how you approach Patreon versus how you approach crowdfunding for a film? Are they similar?
No, I mean, I love Patreon conceptually. I don't feel like I fully dived into it yet.
Okay.
My podcast, or any podcast, like, even though it's free, it costs money. It costs a lot of hours in particular. Yeah. But there's the equipment, there's storage, and the SoundCloud or whatever account that kicks out to iTunes. I buy coffee for for my usually buy coffee for my guests. Sometimes I have to rent out a room, depending on like who I'm meeting and when. So I definitely wanted to have the option for people to kick back if they like the show. Obviously, while I'm currently pushing the video blog so much on my site and on Facebook and on Twitter, I haven't pushed it in a while. I mention it on the show so people can go do it later. Every once in a while I'll be like, hey, by the way, the podcast costs me money, and I lose money on it every single month, so it would be great to get some. And to be honest, at first I thought the show would grow faster sooner than it did, although it has grown. And similarly, I thought the campaign would do the same. The thing about Patreon is, at least the way I have it set up, there's a couple of different ways you can do it, but a lot of people use it this way. You're making small monthly contributions, so most of my contributors, which I think is like 7 or 8, are doing like $2 to $5 a month to support the show, which is really great. But that's oddly, like, if you break that down, it's $25 like that you might drop on any like random independent film campaign. But and some people actually like have contributed to the podcast through PayPal because they don't want to go on Patreon. But instead of doing like $1 or $2 a month, they give me $25 on PayPal, which to me, I'm like, well, it's the same thing, but that's fine. And because it's great, and I appreciate it. But I do think that you definitely have to be committed to, which I'm struggling a little bit now with how busy it is with the film, to releasing on a strict schedule, constantly trying to grow the enterprise. So I'm definitely still learning. I have a lot of ideas, but a lot of the ideas are also like, I have to put away some money to invest in like growing the show and therefore the campaign. So like I honestly, like, I've had I think 5,000 people in a year tune into the show, which is great, but I think that I have to like double or triple that each year or whatever, right, to see the subsequent, it's just as the numbers game, to see a subsequent rise in contributions to the Patreon.
Do you have like Patreon contributor only content that you?
I don't. I haven't done. I kind of do, but like I haven't been great about it because also I don't really think that what I have there right now is adding a bunch of value. I think people are just supporting the show because they like to support the show. So I'm trying to figure that out. I'm also not sure I'm not going to branch off into a Patreon for me as an artist and have the podcast be a element of it. It's something that kind of like once the video blogs calms down a little bit, I'll probably look at into more detail. Right now I'm still struggling to like get the show out on time.
Yeah. Not that we can relate to that or anything.
We don't struggle. We plan way, way ahead. Which hopefully will work now. We're finally having to catch up to that. But anyway, before we move on, we're going to kind of break the interview up into 2 episodes. So we like to wrap up our episodes, and we'll wrap up this first one with some games. And games or sort of... This one's less of a game, but more of just like a conversation piece.
Or possibly Rebecca storming out.
Possibly Rebecca Storm Out could also work as well, but hopefully...
True.
That is not a game you want to play.
This is true.
Hopefully not on this one. This is a pretty a simple
start.
thing. It's a gentle start. This is just favorite things, which is we just talk about something that you really
Stranger Things?
favorite things, but it could be Stranger Things. Oh.
I'm done. I win.
But you just like, what are you really into right now? What's exciting you? And I can start, or if anybody else like feels really, really excited about something. But okay, so my favorite thing was going to be something else, and then 2 days ago I finally watched the newest David Cronenberg movie, Maps to the Stars, and that was.
Where is it out?
It's on HBO now.
Oh, sweet. We can
So
watch it.
yeah.
I heard it's really good.
It's
Sean
super
Connery.
good. It's surreal, and it's like this dark I guess
Julianne Moore?
Julianne Moore is so good in it.
She's great.
Like amazing. Normally I love her, and like the minute she's on
I normally love her
throughout
too.
the whole
I
thing,
love her
like
number.
it was just like I usually I'm just like, oh, I love her. I love seeing her in things. And in this, it was one of those times where it's like, oh yeah, that's why I love her, because she's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Like she just shows up and it's awesome. And John Cusack, who I haven't normally liked since like the 90s, like
It's one of Michael's favorites.
he's
He's had a rough
really
go
good
since
in
the
it.
90s.
Yeah, he has.
In terms of his roles.
Yeah, in terms of his roles and in terms of
Although
just...
Paperboy. I don't know.
I don't think I've seen Paperboy, but a lot of the things that I've seen him in, I'm not like super excited about. But he's really, really good in it, and it's got Mia Wasikowska. I don't know how to pronounce her name.
Wasikowski?
Mia Waska. Oh,
She was in
Alice in
Wasikowski.
Wonderland.
Yeah. Yeah.
the Chandler Park movie, Stoker, and
Yeah,
stuff
the
like that.
blonde girl.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's super good in it.
How old is she now?
She's
Mid-20s?
She was
in
on
that,
In Treatment.
She was on In Treatment,
When she-
and she was
Okay.
like a
She was
kid
really
in that.
good.
She was like, what, 13, 14
I think she was
years old?
playing a little younger, but
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
She was really good.
Yeah, she's really good.
And sparkly vampire dude is pretty good in it too.
Who?
What's his name from Twilight? Robert Pattinson. That's it.
Oh,
He was good in. Did you like? I like Cosmopolis.
I thought
I
Cosmopolis
did
was
too.
really good.
I've never seen
I saw that. That was one.
him in it.
That was the first movie I saw
Cosmopolis is
in a
good.
theater by myself, which is very recently. I don't know why I hadn't gone to a movie by myself earlier. But
It's kind of a creepy movie to see by yourself. In
I had
in
a
the theater.
blast. Yeah.
I saw the History of Violence in a theater by myself, and that was a fucked up movie to see by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a
Just
good. It's Cronenberg. Most
Yeah.
movies are fucked up.
That one though, I
I didn't even know there was a Cronenberg one when I went to see it. I just went with friends, and somebody brought their baby.
Oof.
No.
And
History
that
of
baby.
Violence?
Where else is she gonna leave
History
it?
of Violence.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not bring the baby to the theater, like for History of Violence, for like,
I mean, it's
like
in the title. There's nothing being hidden here. It's
And it
not
is.
like I had no idea that was going to be about violence.
and it was just like, and the
I
baby
thought
was
it was
crying.
just going to be a historian at a lectern, just
And no-
droning on about war.
Oh wow! That was one of the worst experiences of like child in a theater, because it cried like every time it should cry when there was all the horrible violence
Yeah.
and shit.
Cry.
Yeah.
And then the end of the film, it was just like
there was no baby,
constantly.
it was just
That's
Sean.
great parenting.
Sean was just.
Yeah.
It was Sean's inner baby that was crying.
Oh my god, I'm crying so much. Anyway, so that's my favorite thing is Maps to the Stars. I thought it was really I'm a big Cronenberg fan, but it might be my favorite thing since Crash of his. So, because while I've liked a lot of some of the things from the last decade or so, they're not as my favorite. Yes, the good one.
I was like, where
good
is
Crash.
it?
No,
The one with James
God.
Spader and
Rebecca hasn't seen it. She probably doesn't want to see it.
oh,
Why?
Which one? I mean,
it's about a guy who, what is it? He has like his fetish is to.
there's a bunch of
he
people
gets
have
he gets pulled into this community that has a fetish for car crashes,
and like recreating
famous
celebrity,
ones,
yeah.
like the Jane
James
Mansfield,
Dean.
So like
James
crash
Dean.
cars and have sex.
Yeah,
need
that's
to
actually
watch
most of
that
the movie. It's
again.
just they crash cars and then they screw.
With,
James
like,
Spader,
bleeding.
Holly Hunter, and what's her name? The one the Toto song's about.
What?
Roseanne Arquette. That's who I'm thinking of.
Oh,
The Toto song, Rosanna.
I didn't.
It's about Roseanne Arquette.
I know that now.
There you go. Now you know, and knowing is
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
Bad. Yeah, it's bad.
So,
Bad to know.
Do you have a favorite thing?
Me? My favorite thing was actually going to be Stranger Things.
Nice.
No, it's not mine. You can have
That
it.
was-
I'll do something else.
I mean, I enjoyed Stranger Things a lot. If any of you haven't watched it yet, it's the Netflix series. Winona Ryder's in it. Some very good child actors are in it. It combines kind of a bunch of my favorite.
The next chunk is in it.
Oh yeah, the next
Oh, yeah.
chunk.
The next chunk.
He's great.
I know.
It's so good.
He's very gifable, and
Oh yeah, I gotta go out and some gifts of that.
Yeah, I never thought of that actually.
the show has excellent music. Love the music. Love the font, as everybody
Yeah.
has come
And
to
the way
love.
it just like kind of
Yeah.
crawls in and
Yeah.
yeah.
It's got a great opening credit sequence, kind of the way like Alien has a great opening credit sequence.
Yeah.
It's a little different, but
It's like a mashup between Alien and E.T. and the Goonies.
yeah, the show is like,
but also a really well told story.
Oh, yeah.
and I liked with no spoilers, but I liked the way it ended overall. Also, by ways in which it satisfyingly wrapped up things and ways in which it left things open.
Yeah.
I thought was handled very, very well. I like Winona Ryder in it a lot. It's nice to see her again. And there's stuff in it that I found genuinely creepy. And as somebody who makes horror movies, and most horror things just don't scare me, like they're entertaining, but Stranger Things at times had me very much in suspense at the edge of my seat. Like, I can't watch this. And has a very good monster, and will
Monster,
well, it will remind you of many other pop culture things without being like a ripoff or a kind of pointless exercise in pastiche. Like it has soul, it has a point of view, it is about people and makes you feel feelings and things like that, while also reminding you of A Nightmare on Elm Street and The X-Files and E.T. and Stand By Me and all sorts of things from your childhood that, if you're me, make you happy. So Stranger Things right now is my favorite thing. Can't wait for season 2.
Mic drop. I thought you were gonna drop the mic.
No.
It's like, wait, have we paid for that? A favorite thing of mine this week is Grant Morrison's new X-Men run. Which I just read.
Totally not what I thought you were going to say.
Oh, well, maybe you can say what.
No, because
What do you think I was gonna say?
My dad wrote a porno.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Wait, what?
My dad wrote a porno. Can I have
just
two?
changed it.
Can I have two?
Changed it.
Did your dad write a porno?
No.
Ooh.
Oh,
There's a
okay,
podcast.
I misunderstood.
There's a podcast called My Dad Wrote a Porno. It's a very big podcast, so like people will probably have heard of it. But if they haven't, it's this guy who and his friends, they're like late 20s, early 30s, and one of them, his father heard about 50 Shades of Grey and thought, hey, I can do that.
But never read it.
But never read it, and just started.
He's
He had
60.
previously. He's about 60. He's previously been self-publishing travel books, and decided to instead self-publish erotic literature.
With his wife. He was doing the self-travel books with his wife.
Yeah, but his wife doesn't want anything to do with the porno. So he gave a draft for his son to read, and he got drunk with his friends at Christmas, and they read it aloud to each other and basically cracked jokes about it. And they turned it into a podcast, and it's now like this huge phenomenon. And it's cringeworthy. I played the first episode for Rebecca today. Yeah. It's cringeworthy, but also it's too funny. It's really funny. It's one of those like, things that you couldn't make up, and it's hilarious.
Did you say the name of it?
My Dad Wrote a Porno is the name of it.
No, it's the name of the podcast. But the name of the porno book is Belinda Blinked.
Ew. Sorry.
Blinked.
That's the shortened title. The actual title is like 4 lines long.
Because he wants to make a series, like Belinda Blinked in Tokyo.
Oh, I'm actually season 2 just started, and the second book is Belinda Blinked in Amsterdam or something like that. She's in Amsterdam. I don't know if that's what the name.
But it's like these 3 friends like reading it, and a woman and 2 men, one of which the dad wrote it, and they can't even get through. Sometimes they can't even get through a sentence without cracking jokes about it.
I had no idea this existed.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, my mind has just...
I've been like that crazy person on the subway and on the streets, just like laughing out loud.
Yeah.
Rebecca like makes me stop playing it because she's trying to sleep.
He has a really loud laugh. But I'm going to listen to it too. I just only want to do it at home so that I don't look like a crazy person walking down the street.
I don't care. It's great. It actually really the video blogs came out last week, and it was kind of a tense week, and it was the perfect time to discover this podcast because I had all sorts of anxiety that like was being alleviated by how hilarious this show was.
I haven't listened to that show, but my previous favorite thing on this show, various podcasts, specifically the 2 different 90210 podcasts and Gemcast, I will laugh to myself walking down the street with my headphones on at some of this. I don't care. I just go with it. I'm like, whatever. People think something like, sorry, I'm having a good time and enjoying what I'm listening to instead of being mad about it. So I support you in listening to your show in whatever context.
Yeah, we'll get Rebecca on.
All right, maybe I'll get over it. Maybe. I just like, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning on the train. Like, I don't want people laughing around me. I want people to shut up.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, I do not want people
like
doing
when those girls get on the train and they're like talking really loud. And then she was like, and then I was just like,
7th Avenue girls, if you're listening, stop.
Yeah.
It's true.
Always 7th Avenue.
Always 7th Avenue on the Q train. Always
boys,
Park Slope.
But
teenagers are terrible, I think.
No. These are grown women.
Oh, okay.
I believe that.
Yep.
I believe that.
Yeah.
Especially in the morning.
Not everybody else is awake, so stop.
Exactly.
Or just lower your voices. So this favorite things that like it has to be media.
No, it could be anything.
The first thing that I thought in my head was jalapeno cheese doodles.
That sounds fantastic.
That is completely.
But I thought oh my gosh, what are they like? Barbara's is the name of the brand, and they're jalapeno cheese doodles. They're so good. I gave my dad one the other day, and he was like, "Did you make these?" He thought that I made cheese doodles.
Do you know how to make cheese doodles?
No,
who knows how to make cheese doodles?
He just thought it was like so different, and he knows that I like to like try to cook different things. Well, different like according to my dad.
Right.
And he was just like, and they just taste really good. So maybe he thought they were like home cooked. I don't know. But then as you guys were talking, I was thinking about other things. Like honestly, since this past like this run for us has been so like intense this week, I've been really focusing on keeping it simple, like waking up in the morning, working out, going to work, coming home, eating dinner, watching TV, reading a book, like nothing special. But the book I'm reading right now, I'm really into. It's called Z, and it's about Zelda Fitzgerald, who is amazing. We named our dog after her, and it's a fictionalized version on the actual events of her life and like what her and F. Scott probably might have said to each other based on like the things going on. And it's really interesting to like, and this has been like rumored and like talked about a lot, how because they're another like kind of artist relationship, how much they kind of fed each other's work. And I mean, gratefully, Michael's not as jealous as F. Scott was of Zelda's talents. Well, I don't know what you say about me behind my back.
Oh my God, you don't want to know.
Right. But yeah, I mean, just the whole era. I mean, they're talking about like Gertrude Stein and like Hemingway and Dorothy Parker, and it's just a really, really cool kind of writer's time. Sorry,
Cool.
not as
No.
Stranger Things is awesome. I haven't seen the movie you talked about, and I did listen to my dad wrote a porno podcast.
That's totally fine. We want to discover new things.
Yes.
Great
not-
book.
Awesome.
Cool. All right.
Cool.
So we should wrap up this section, then we'll talk about distribution and things like that. So we were talking about social media, but where can people find you guys on the internet?
I have a website, mdibiasio.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's not DiBiasio, DiBiasio. Dibiasio. You can Google me also. And I am on Twitter at Michael DiBiasio, and Instagram also at Michael DiBiasio, and I'm on Facebook where you can friend me and I will decide if we're going to be friends.
Yeah. And I'm at RebeccaDeOrnelas.com, which is long, and I'm sure it'll just be like somewhere in the episode notes, so I'm not gonna.
We'll totally put it in the episode.
And on Twitter at Rebecca Deo, same thing as Instagram and Facebook. I probably won't accept your friend request unless I know you, so don't worry about it.
Are there places people can find some of your work, perhaps the video blogs or Coffee with Creatives or Multiverse?
Yeah.
Yeah, all of our
If you
stuff.
go to either of our websites, you'll be able to track them down, and then the video blogs you can find on iTunes. Just search for it.
Yeah, Videoblogs is on iTunes,
Amazon
Verizon,
Frontier Cable.
If you watch and enjoy any of those platforms, please leave a rating and or a review. Everything else that we've done, you can watch for free, pretty much on Vimeo. Also from our sites, Coffee with Creatives is on iTunes as well.
Sweet.
Cool. And we are 4Mile Circus. You can find us at 4MileCircus.com, at 4MileCircus, Facebook.com/4MileCircus, and Instagram. We are also 4Mile Circus. We're just 4Mile Circus everywhere. And you can figure out.
Circusing all over the place.
You can figure out who Nicole and I are from there. I'm Uncle Sean everywhere, and Nicole is
I'm different
something.
things. Something.
She's-
Some lady.
It's like a Waldo thing, trying to figure out where she is. Like, where's Waldo?
Just because of all the stripes I wear.
Yeah, because you wear a lot of stripes.
Yeah.
What else would I be referring
I'm
to?
sorry,
She's
that
wearing
was
polka dots
obvious.
right now.
Exactly.
Obvious of me.
They're not very
It's
stripy.
like
She likes to hide out in
There's
picture
stripes.
books.
it's like
No.
so, and the people watching the live
they're
stream in
they're
particular.
2D stripes?
Yeah.
They're stripes from
Yes,
from,
from the-
from the
exactly.
other dimension?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So
Anyway,
that was that, and
that was great.
Great. All right, I'm gonna cut this.
Bye.
If you like what you heard, please subscribe on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice, and check out other 4Mile Circus services and projects at 4MileCircus.com, as well as 4Mile Circus on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Watch our first VOD release, Nicole's award-winning feminist phone sex horror comedy Small Talk, at 4MileCircus.com/store. On our next episode, part 2 of our 2-part interview with Michael and Rebecca, we'll be discussing the release and distribution of the video blogs. Join us then.